What's good, guys? This is a very exciting day because I get to install this. AVIN USA sent me out an Android heading to install in my ML63 AMG. Gotta give a quick shout out to AVIN for sending me this product out to make this video. If you guys enjoyed this video, please check out their products. They got a great line of stuff going on. Alright, so we've got a user guide over here, and let's see, we got the actual unit right here. This is a 9-inch display. Obviously some wiring harnesses and such, which will plug into the OEM harnesses and will connect to the Android unit itself. This looks like what it says, a CAN bus decoder. We've got some more cables here, which we're going to see in the actual installation process. Now, unlike my BMW video, which I had to cut the dash for to make it fit, it is more of a custom thing. This will slot right into the dash of the W164 ML or GL. It is also important to note that this comes with a MOS adapter for your Harman Kardon and fiber optic surround sound system. Now, it depends if your car has this option. Now, mine does, so I do have this unit over here, which should ensure I retain the high quality audio that I would have with the Harman Kardon unit anyways. This is an optional extra, so if you do have the Harman Kardon system, make sure you select this option. And there we have it. I actually brought the unit out itself. It's going to be beautiful inside the car. It's going to sit flush in the dash, just like the current system already does. However, instead of the puny 3.5-inch command display, we now have a 9-inch touchscreen, which is going to be awesome for CarPlay. Keep in mind, this is an 11-year-old car, my ML63, so by adding this new technology, we can add CarPlay, Android Auto, and several other new features that are going to be great. At the back, you can see we get the AVIN logo over here. We've got a Wi-Fi antenna or some sort of antenna. We've got where to plug in the GPS sort of wires and all that. This can have integrated built-in maps if you get the SD card with the iGo maps. I'm probably going to get that eventually, but for now, I'll be just using CarPlay or Android Auto, depending what phone me or my dad is using. This is an HDMI connector right here, which means you could technically hook up a PS3 or whatever PlayStation you want to the car, which would be kind of funny. Even a Xbox, whatever, could be kind of cool. Might make a video about that. But as we can see, this unit actually is pretty small behind the screen. The footprint of this screen would essentially be all commands. It's a pretty heavy unit. So on the bright side of this, we will have more space for wires and connectors and harnesses and all that kind of stuff. Because as you can see, a lot of the connectors do add up to kind of make a lot of wiring, but it'll all be hidden away regardless of what happens. I really can't wait to install this. I'm really looking forward to seeing this massive screen inside, sitting flush in my ML dash. Now I've got a ton of ML and GL subscribers from the channel, so please do me a favor, check them out if you like the product after this video is done. So before we can install the new unit, we have to take out the old command unit right here. For some perspective of where we begin, here is the stock screen. It's a very small little screen, but the new screen will essentially fill this entire area, so it should be pretty cool. First off, behind this lower compartment in my 164, there are two Torx screws kind of hiding in there. They're T20s. There it is right there in the middle of the screen. T20 on this side and also one on that side. So once we take out those T20s, we can actually remove this entire compartment to make things a little bit easier. There are a few wires, and I'll show you that after I take it out. Alright, so with the T20s out, I can actually pull the entire tray out, as you can see. I'm going to go ahead and close it without, pushing it back in. And then to get this all the way out, we got to kind of pull up a little bit, and it should slowly make its way out, like we can see here. Alright, so you have to pull quite a bit upwards to get enough clearance between these two grab handles to get this kind of tray out. But now we can see the screws. We can actually take them out and put them away somewhere safely. And there's only one connector at the back we have to unplug. Alright, so that black connector right there that plugs into the blue connector has to come out. The blue one can actually stay on the unit itself. It is the black one that should be removed. Little tab right there, as you can see. You can use your finger or a pick tool or something like that. Alright, now I can put this aside. It is all unharmed and whatever. We can put this to the side. You can see the connector right over here. Now the next step is going to be removing this entire trim piece over here, so we can remove it completely and have the most access to the command system as possible. And to do that, so just clip into place. We kind of have to pull around the sides. Be careful not to pull too hard at the bottom, especially because this set of thin piece over here is not connected to this actual tray over here. So it's a very thin piece of wood. You want to kind of pull at the edges, use some kind of maybe trim tools and stuff along the edges. Plastic, of course, not metal. And it should kind of make its way out. What you do want to be careful of is not putting too much pressure on the HVAC controls and all that, because they're all clipped in. We will be unclipping those to get the most clearance, but initially when you take it out, they'll still be connected, obviously, so keep that in mind. And here you can see I've got my HVAC control panel at least kind of loosened up. Now we just remove a few connectors. So these kind of style connectors over here, you have to push down this top clip. There should be a little tab securing it. You could have pushed this all the way down and the connector will slide out. For this specific, these two right here, you have to remove this bigger one first because this one is in the way, or it's in the way of this small one rather. So you can take those two out first and just kind of work your way down and remove all these connectors that plug into this panel over here. You can put it aside for safekeeping. Just wanted to show you guys I've gotten this connector past the tab, and now we simply just push down and out. We can now put this to the side. There's also a good chance to wrap your trim if you'd like to. This wood trim has not aged very well, but it's a good time to wrap it. Alright, for the next step, now we must remove these T20s right over here. There's one on this side, kind of into this little aluminum sort of looking thing over here. Same applies on this side. Just remove those T20s, keep them in a safe place, and then we'll be back after that's done. Alright, so once you've gotten those screws out, you have to pull down on these little metal hangers over here, like so. Same on this side. Might be a little bit difficult, might need a screwdriver, so keep that in mind. This one's come out just fine. And now the entire unit can kind of slide out of place. You can pull this on out now. Be careful not to bend the wires behind the unit, so we're going to go ahead and be careful with that. I'm going to use both hands so I don't break anything. As you guys can see, this is a pretty massive unit right here, and conveniently the grab handles are in a perfect place to sort of rest the unit at without damaging it at all. It is all pretty, lax. There's no tension in the wire, which is just fantastic. But as you can see, this thing is pretty chunky. It's a pretty significantly sized unit. It's pretty heavy too, so be careful about that. But now it's time to remove the connectors from this unit so we can get out of the car and get the new one installed. You want to be very careful with these two wires right here. They're both orange. These are the fiber optic cables for the Harman Kardon surround sound system. It's very important you don't damage these because you could cost yourself an entire wiring harness, which would not be fun and could potentially total the entire car. So please be very careful with those two wires right there. Cannot stress that enough. Anyways, you can start by removing this connector right here. A little tab on the side, squeeze that, push this up. It would be easier with both hands, but there it is. That is now out of place. And now we can disconnect the other ones as well. This one's actually very similar to the HVAC controls right here. You got to push down at the tab, push back, and then the entire thing just kind of wants to come out. Only thing stopping this from coming out is that these guys are kind of in the way, so I'm going to take these out first. Little tabs, as you can see, they require a little bit more force. I believe this is for all the antennas, GPS and all that, so you want to push this little tab back and should be able to pull right off. And just like that, the entire command unit is now out of the car. We're ready to install the new one. Just want to show you guys, pretty funny. This is the AVIN USA unit, 9-inch screen over here next to the stock command unit, which you can see this is a huge leap of technology in comparison between the two things over here. And also the sheer size of this command unit, it's huge, right? But then the new one's just a modern Android unit behind here, and it's just so compact in comparison. So pretty cool, pretty cool. This may look a little messy, but don't worry, I'm going to explain all of it shortly. But this is essentially what the back of the AVIN unit looks like with all the cables plugged in that came in the box. And now we may not have to use all of these. Kind of depends on what you guys have in your cars and what you guys want to utilize. But not all these cables will be used for sure. Now this main cable right here, everyone should be using regardless of what car you have. It essentially connects the OEM harness right over here to the actual AVIN unit back here. This is a CAN bus decoder, so you can kind of tell stuff, from the steering wheel functions and stuff like that. It can raise the volume and all that. It can also, I think, show RPM if you really wanted to. Not 100% sure on that, but we'll see when we get the unit started up. We'll also have to wire part of our most amplifier, which is right over here, to some of these connections. I'll show you guys how to do that. It's not the most clear in the instructions, which I'm not really surprised. It just kind of is what it is. Kind of varies from car to car, but hopefully I'm going to figure this out and show you guys how this will all work. Then over here we have various video output and all that kind of stuff, output to various whatever you want to do really. I'm not really sure if I'm going to use this actual harness at all because I'm not really using my rear seat entertainment at all. I don't think this works with the OEM rear seat entertainment, which my car has. No one uses the back seats in my car anyway, so I'm not really concerned about that. So I'm not sure if I'm going to use this yet. This one has the option to attach a mic over here, just a classic, aux, sort of mic. I'm not quite sure how the mic is on this unit itself, so I'm going to test that out before I want to put in an aftermarket mic. I actually have one over here just in case I want to use a third-party mic. I just bought this on Amazon, but I'm hoping that the mic within here is good enough. And let's see, then we got some backup camera options as well. Now my car has an OEM backup camera, so I should not need to use most of these. Just want to talk about the most again real quick. So you might see this little connector comes out of the actual amplifier itself. And this guy over here will essentially use those fiber optic connections I was talking about in the car earlier. Those two little orange wires will unclip from that main connector and it'll go into this instead, which is then going to go into this amplifier. Like I mentioned earlier, there are a few wires you need to connect. So like I was saying, kind of mentioning earlier, the top yellow wire is labeled B+, not sure why that's focusing. The middle wire is ground, the lower red wire is accessory. The radio connection right here does appear to utilize the stock radio connection, which is going to plug right into this guy over here. The GPS has its own antenna over here. Now if you're using your phone with CarPlay, you won't need this, but I'm going to put it in there anyways because, you know, why not? And then this guy has some USB ports. Now I'm not sure if this one has CarPlay built in. We're going to find out shortly. If it doesn't, you need a dongle to plug into one of these guys, and you should be all set from there. Also, don't worry about all these wires, where they plug in and all that. They can only go in one way. It's kind of impossible to mess it up unless you try to force something in where it's not supposed to go, but don't do that. I'll put a picture of the colors if you want to get a more, clear representation instead of the user manual. So I'm going to do that right now. You guys take a look at that. I'm showing on the screen. So you guys just copy this if you have the exact same unit, and you should be all set. Alright guys, now I'm going to start wiring up my unit, get all my adapters in place. So if you have an OEM backup camera like I myself, basically this adapter right over here, this little green cable that went into your OEM command unit is not going to plug into this little adapter over here. It has a gold fitting over here, and that gold fitting will plug into the rear camera in on the actual one of the harnesses for the Android unit over here. So that little guy right there is going to plug into there, and the rear camera will work without a problem. For GPS, you will take the stock or OEM blue wire, the FACRA cable that came from the OEM unit, and you'll plug it into the Android where it says GPS in the back. Pretty straightforward. Just an FYI, earlier on I showed another GPS antenna that came with the actual unit itself, but if I can use the car one, I'll use that instead because it's probably better. So this little guy's going to plug into the most box that AVIN gave me, and so I'm going to plug the fiber optic cables into this guy so it'll kind of act as a little clip. Kind of hard to see, but the arrows do line up in terms of, what goes where. I know it can only go in one way, so that we can just kind of slides in like so. Now this can actually plug into the most box without an issue.
3 hours later.
Alright guys, a few hours later, as you can see, we don't have any more daylight, but that's okay because I still have this flashlight with me and basically almost done. So I was having some trouble kind of figuring out how to connect the most amplifier, but now I got it all figured out. I'm going to show you guys what exactly to do. Alrighty, so on the wiring harness of the actual car, not the AVIN unit, you're going to see these wires over here. So in the top right corner, that's where the fiber optic cables went before. And then on that little block of connectors of 8 pins, you can see that some cars may have different pins and whatnot. But on that red wire, you can see the arrows pointing to. You want to wire the ACC cable from the most and the Android unit, as well as the B+ from the most and the Illumi from the Android. So I believe the ACC is red on both the Android and the most amplifier. The B+ is yellow. The Illumi, I think, is orange. And then you of course want to wire the ground to the brown wire over there. You may see some people use the other red wire in the middle of those 3 connectors, which is not what you want to do, or else your car will drain the battery overnight. Don't ask me how I know that. So yeah, you're going to want to avoid that bottom right corner wire, but you're going to want to use that top right corner, the red one the arrow is pointing to, and the bottom left for the ground. Also, if you do not have a wire where I have my arrows pointing to on the diagram over there, 2 slots up where my connector is actually empty, it's considered pin 13. You can kind of see a miniature 13 on the end of the connector there, but you can actually tap it on that wire instead if your car has that wire instead of the one in pin 15 where my arrow is currently pointing. This applies, at least my diagram specifically applies to the 2009 Plus MLs and GLs, the facelift models essentially with the Harman Kardon Logic 7 sound system, so this may be different if you have the slightly older vehicles. Well, like I said, pin 13 or 15, so that top right or the middle right, which is what I have marked over there. But yeah, that should basically do it for the amplifier. Just want to run down the connections again just to make sure I've gotten pretty clear what goes to where. So the green connection connects to the backup camera, which is that adapter that goes to the yellow RCA, which I kind of showed earlier. That's pretty straightforward and clear. Yellow connection, just like this, is actually not going to be used by us. It's actually for the OEM modules, the command unit's Bluetooth antenna, which it's just built in this guy over here because we have modern technology now. But yeah, that back connection is not going to be used at all. As you can see, it's just kind of laying over here. It doesn't really affect anything. And then with the most amplifier, I was also making the mistake earlier of connecting the RCA to the video in. You want to connect the RCAs to the video out. So the gray wires, not the black wires. So please don't make the same mistake I did. Didn't really do anything, but it just kind of was frustrating for a while not being able to know what was going on. And then for the GPS, I just kind of took the OEM antenna and I plugged it in right over here. It just is plug and play, the blue one, and it worked. I can verify it works. I have the satellites all connected and all that, so that's awesome. And then for the radio, there's actually this one connection on the OEM command unit that kind of sits higher up. I believe it was, I actually tucked it back, but it's kind of like those climate controls with the kind of sliding switch. So I took that one. There was actually a white sort of connection on that. And so I disassembled that, and I connected the white with a purple sort of clip on it into the radio section right over there. Okay, so pause real quick. This is actually my bad. I actually did not hook up the radio correctly, the actual FM radio signal part. So this kind of white fucker cable I was talking about does not need to plug into this AVIN unit at all, but it does kind of help with the radio signal. However, it's not what you want ideally. So they did supply an extra long fucker cable, which I wasn't sure what we should be using it for. But essentially it'll connect from the AVIN unit to the radio receiver amplifier, which I guess is somewhere either in the trunk or below the rear seats. I think in my car it's in the trunk, but I'll let you guys know. But I'll make a separate video on that, on basically how to hook up the radio properly and make sure you get the proper signal. But aside from that, everything else in this video is fine. It's just that one whole radio connection thing. If you don't have satellite radio, this should be fine. I believe you guys will have a white cable in the center console anyways. But if you don't, it's probably going to be in either the trunk, like I said, or behind the taillight compartment. Or underneath the rear seats, I mean. So, you know, I'll make a video, follow up on that. But yeah, not to follow the unit at all. It's more just my bad not knowing where to put the cable. Now, I have noticed that the radio connection is not the best on this unit, but everyone else has said this exact same thing. But I did notice that without that white thing, it would not connect at all. But I do get a few good stations with it connected. Now, however, if you're installing this like me, this probably isn't your main priority. My main priority is CarPlay and Android Auto, and that's really all I'm going to use this unit for. I probably will install some downloaded or some offline maps and stuff, but other than that, it's really going to be mostly CarPlay. So having radio is nice, but by far not the 100% priority. I'm going to try and figure that out later as well, though, just because I'm kind of curious if I can make it work. I also believe there's a South African gentleman on YouTube who kind of figured out how to wire up the OEM microphones. Now this car has two microphones. I believe one is somewhere up there, and then I have no idea what the other one is. But I did find it. I called my friend through this unit, and he said the mic sounded great, just fine. It's actually right here on this Android unit, right over here. So I don't really have a need to connect an external microphone or anything like that. This one seems to work just fine. So this right here with the silver end, and the other end is supposed to be AVIN's microphone adapter, but unfortunately for the 2009 plus models, this does not seem to work at all because the microphone is on a different sort of connection completely. Like I said earlier, the guy on YouTube got to figure it out, but it's okay, we don't need it. But I do believe for the older models, probably 2006, the earlier 164 is essentially the pre-facelift. I do believe it'll work for those, so keep that in mind if you have an older one. And I also did not end up using this extension connector over. And now moving on to USB. So in the glove box of my car, at least, it's an 09, there was a media interface connection right there in the little black spot that's kind of showing now. All I did was I popped off this kind of cover piece of that, then I pushed the connector out of there. So now we have a direct access in the glove box from basically over here. I basically reached my hand through here, and I was able to get that connector and pull it out. So what I'm about to do is I'm about to plug in the USB connections for this head unit. I'm going to run those two, the longer USB blocks. I'm going to run them through the glove box. This way I have direct access to my CarPlay dongles, which I'll go over in a separate video, but that's going to be really convenient, and it's going to be looking kind of OEM with that already open spot in the glove box. So in terms of wiring, that really is more or less it. I mean, this all is basically wired up and ready to go. The unit works as it is. Like I said, the USB is all I'm kind of working on right now. But everything else works just fine. I'm going to kind of tighten up a few things, make sure my taps are nice and solid. I'm going to put some electrical tape down there to make sure that's all insulated and all that. But yeah, looking forward to getting this back in the car. And check that out, guys. Got the USB ports coming out of the OEM hole in the glove box. Looking great. And there we have it, guys. We have the modernized dash of my ML63 with this brand new AVIN USA Android 10 based infotainment. Look at that. Look how smooth that is. I will be going over functionality and stuff like that with more features and stuff like that in a separate video, kind of what you can do with this unit itself, what it adds to your driving experience. And I'll also talk about CarPlay in a separate video as well, which you can kind of see is hiding right there. Alrighty guys, well I hope this video was helpful. If you guys have any questions, feel free to let me know in the comments.